Most likely you're not going to be in a plane crash. Most likely, the statistics, not saying it won't happen, because I know some people who have gone viral, and I don't know anybody who's been personally in a plane crash, but I know some people who've gone viral for sure, 100%. It's going to happen to somebody. It's just most likely not going to be you.
Because there's just not enough time for the compound effect to pay off, if that makes sense. And again, I don't want to associate with Arnold, but the point I'm making is over time, your courage and your decision making is what's going to make or break your long-term success.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Today, for episode number 1850, success is in the numbers. So Alan and I are reading a book. I'm going to let Alan explain the book and kind of talk about it here in a minute. And he said we should do an episode on that and what the awareness is that book has created. More awareness in me than I think Alan. And I said, all right, well, what's a story? What's something that'll actually help people understand what we're talking about? And I said, I got one. I have an idea. There was an infographic that I saw somewhere online. And it essentially had the number of songs from some of the top artists. So let's say it's Drake, Taylor Swift, and I don't know, who else is a big artist? Drake, Taylor Swift, and we'll just say Drake and Taylor Swift. I don't know. Lil Wayne, perfect. And it said number of songs made, number of hits. And do not quote me on this because I don't know the exact number, and I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it. But it was something along the lines of, let's just say 10%. Let's say this person has made 400 songs, and 40 of them have been hits. And this is quite literally 3 of the top artists on the planet ever of all time. 10%. So for every 10 songs they write, 1 is a hit. And even that is extremely high.
Yeah.
If we think about it, right? 1 out of 10 when it comes to stuff like that is pretty big. Even if you think of directors, that's a hard one, I guess, because they hit pretty often. Or authors. How many authors have written dozens of books and you only know one of them?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're talking about today, and that's why it's success is in the numbers, because if I told you that, if I said, hey, I want to tell you a story today about somebody who only succeeds 10% of the time. They take 100 shots and they only get 10 yeses. And I proceeded to tell this story about how I know what you're thinking. This person's probably not very successful, and they probably feel like they're down on their luck, and nobody probably knows who they are. Surprise! Taylor Swift! Then you might go into that whole thing thinking, yeah, no, it makes sense. I guess 1 out of 10 isn't that good. But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably way better than you think. So take it away, sir.
Well, I love the baseball metaphor because you're in the Hall of Fame with even 30%, right?
Yes, you are.
35%?
At 35%, you're, again, like the best in the top ever of all time. I think the highest batting average ever, and if you're a baseball fan, please let me know. You can comment below on whatever platform you're watching. Ted Williams, I believe, batted 400 for an entire season. So
that's 40% hits.
40% of the time he got.
And that doesn't mean that's not home runs. That's base hits. That's
just ending up
bunts,
on base.
Bunts count, right?
You can bunt as long as you get that, as long as you land on base. Doesn't matter. There's, I was going to say errors, but I don't think that counts. That counts as an error. So yes, bunts count.
Nice. So regardless of Kev not knowing where to find that infographic, I told him behind the scenes 2 things. One, it's the concept that matters.
Alan
but
said just lie. He said just lie about it, Kev. Just lie
no,
through your
I
teeth.
did not say that.
He said, just say this is for certain the number. I am certain of it.
100%.
Bet the house on it.
I'm 100% that it's 10% out of 400. No, what I said was just be honest that you don't know where, like you don't quote me on this, however. And so I said the opposite of what you're telling everyone, which is just be honest that you don't actually know for sure. So,
I try to do that with everything, Alan. Most of the things I don't know, I just try to say, like, honestly, it's worked for me. I can't guarantee it'll work for you, but it's worked for me, so it's a thing, maybe.
Yeah, it's a thing for me.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I mentioned to Kev is I'm going to open from now on to try to with I'm an engineer and I think in mathematics. And I feel like I'm saying that for me more than for anyone else because I just feel like I need the permission. I coached another engineer. His name was Udit for a long time. And I remember having a coaching session where I realized this is the coolest thing ever. I don't have to explain any mathematical stuff to him. He just intuitively already understands, like optimal stopping, all that stuff. He just gets it. So the amount of time and effort that it's really hard to explain some of these really challenging concepts, right? I spent a decade learning all of mathematics and it's very difficult to explain that on a podcast, right? So, and I was telling Kev before this, and this is a precursor to the probability, the numbers, everything's a numbers game. I said, imagine the world without engineers. No bridges, no technology, no computers, no rocket ships, no Amazon, no iPhones. I mean, the world would be a lot worse without engineers. And I told Kevin this, and I didn't want to offend anyone, but I also want to make it clear and help people. And I realize that you can't help people without sometimes offending some people, and that's a percentage too, by the way. You say something in front of 100 people, 70 are going to love it and be like, whoa, that's such a big breakthrough. Thank you so much. And then 30% are going to be, nah. And then, or 29% are going to be mad. And then 1% is going to hate me vehemently. And usually I would be upset by the one guy giving me daggers. And I'm just done with all that. Honestly, I don't know if I do care. I just am learning not to care. I just have to. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to exist as me. So anyways, the playful example that I give about being a numbers thinker is when you're in high school and a girl says, hey, do you look fat in that? And you say yes at level 6 out of 10. You basically realize that that's a terrible idea, even though my brain actually says those things about myself too. Like that's the thing. I'm that hard on myself as well. And so when you're a numbers thinker, you learn very quickly to lock that part of you up and hide it away. And I'm learning how to not do that because I actually think it's going to help a ton of people. So, okay, that said, the point of this episode is, I was telling Kevin this before, I said, I actually don't think that you can make rational decisions, and this is scary to share, without numbers. And I said, I don't think people think in probability. And he said, no, a lot of people don't. And I said, it's very hard to make a good choice. I said, a lot of success comes down to courage and making good decisions. And if I had to add a third, it would be self-belief, which allows you to have courage and make better decisions. And then work ethic is important. There's a lot of things, but courage is your ability to face your fears, like I'm doing right now by being me. And making good choices is strategic. It's what is the probability that someone dislikes this episode if I share these things? How do I maximize the probability that I, A, help someone, and B, convince someone that their life will be better if they learn how to make strategic decisions based on probability? So you mentioned a story way back about Guess Who. You were playing Guess Who with Taryn at a place, a restaurant. A brewery. And it was 70% male, 30% female on the board or something, and you said, okay, is your person male? You can
something
tell the story.
like that. I don't remember the exact thing, but I realized very quickly that there were certain characters that gave me a higher percentage chance of getting higher awareness. So let's say there's 10 characters and 7 are men and 3 are female. If I say, is your character a man? And she says no, I just eliminated 70% of the board.
Right. Which gives you an advantage in the game.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to guess her person. If
I went the opposite and I didn't know that, and I just said, well, is your person a woman? And she said, yes. Well, I eliminated 30%, but there's still 70%. So that was the first time that I'd ever thought from a strategic, rational numbers standpoint. I don't know if I've ever played Guess Who before, but it was different for me. As simple as that story is, that's a really good example of rationality. It's not just, I wasn't just guessing.
Right.
It wasn't a guess. It was 4 people have glasses, 3 people have blonde hair. It was going through the numbers to try to figure out the probability.
I remember when you first shared that story, I didn't understand because I, at that point, didn't understand that because I've never made a decision without that.
I
It's called
remember. Yeah, I remember.
And it was courageous for you to share that because it's very hard for you to share that around someone who has never made a decision without sort of that framework. And so the point of this episode isn't for anyone to feel poorly about themselves. The point of this episode is to understand your modalities of thinking. So there's 4 modalities of thinking. Everyone has a really good one and everyone has a really bad one. And I'll share my really good one and I'll share my really bad one. And it's really changed my life because Emilia helped me come up in my bad one. So my really good one is mathematics, formulas, numbers, rationality, logic, probability, statistics. Okay, so the first one's mathematics. That's the rarest, I think, which is why most engineers have low self-worth, even though they don't seem like it on the outside, maybe. Some of them ego up like I used to. Okay, number 2, and they seem really confident in their ability to do things, but they aren't confident socially, typically, most engineers. Okay, number 2 is energy, and that's the second rarest. This was my really bad one. Vibe, energy, and intuition. It's a certain energy. So when I got on an interview yesterday, I was interviewed by a woman, and when I got on, I immediately knew it would be good. I read the energy, and I went, nice. I could tell she wasn't going to do this ego bonking crap with me, and that she's not trying to... She wasn't trying to gain energetic dominance. She wasn't trying to look good.
Doesn't that sound irrational? Kind of.
Yeah, I've done it enough times where ego bonking is noticeable because the other person's trying to gain higher ground. They're trying to look good rather than actually learn. I could tell she was trying to actually learn, but yeah, even that sounds...
That's a hard one.
Problem. One of the hard problems with communication, and I'm going to get to the third modality, which is words and concepts, is Emilia will always say, well, how do you know that? And I'll say math. And she'll say, no. What are you calculating? And I don't know how to explain and unpack what I'm calculating. So, for example, I told the story about how we were outside McDonald's doing pickup. God, we sound like we eat like crap. It's 90% of the time we eat really well, but you hear about the 10% of times we get Domino's and McDonald's. But anyway, so we're sitting at outside pickup, and she is concerned because it's sort of a dark area and near the woods and that kind of, and we're in a nice car. And I said, sweetheart, we're good. We're more likely to get struck by lightning. But that doesn't do anything for her. She doesn't know what I'm calculating. And I said, okay, well, this is a 24/7 McDonald's, yeah? She said, yeah. I said, okay, how many times do you think they get robbed a year? And she said, I don't know. I said, probably maybe 5 times. Okay, of those 5 times, how many people die per year at this McDonald's? And she said, I don't know. I said 0. On average, it's probably 0.11 if you, the McDonald's has been there for 30 years. So 30 years, 4 deaths at that McDonald's over the last 30 years. So the chances of us being one of those, you're fine. You're more likely of a freaking Bigfoot coming out and punching us in the face. Like, I don't like irrationality. I have irrational fears too. Snapping turtles, I joke, and I know it's irrational. No one dies of snapping turtles. Only 1 shark death per 338 million Americans per year. But that doesn't include the people that don't swim that year. So you have to break down the numbers, right? But that's why I'll never play the lottery, because if you break down the rationality, the probability, so you flip a coin, the probability of getting heads is 50%. The probability of you getting mugged outside of McDonald's it's very, very, very irrational depending on the area. And depending on the circumstance but if you don't think in numbers, you basically will be run by your irrational fears. And if you're run by your irrational fears, you won't make logical, rational, positive choices towards your goals and dreams. And most of the time, my coaching is pretty much just undistorting people's consciousness regarding, I use the Tesla analogy, the self-driving Tesla. If it has a blind spot and one of the cameras is blocked and there's a truck coming from the right, it has to go left. But when the camera is occluded, it doesn't let you do self-driving. It says, hey, go wipe off your camera, otherwise you can't do this self-driving thing. Makes perfect sense, because if I can't see, and so most people in life, they don't get to their goals because they have a occluded camera that they keep driving into a wall, and they don't know why. And that's self-sabotage, and that's lack of consistency, that's lack of self-discipline, that's poor choices, that's They aren't playing Guess Who the way that you were, which was very rational. They were winging it. Like, I was telling Kev right before this, let's say you played Guess Who just guessing. You might win and think you're the man, even though you just got lucky. And you might make perfect choices, and it ends up being the rarest person on the board, and then you think you suck. You can make really good choices and have them not come out well. Yeah. And you can make really bad choices and have them come out really well. And so luck plays a huge factor in all of our lives. However, over the long term, luck runs out. And over the long term, this is why when you're young, everyone's kind of the same baseline. Everyone there's no like multimillionaire high school students unless they inherited the money. There's no self-made billionaire high schoolers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. The reason why is because you haven't had enough time to consistently make positive choices to the extent where you maximize the probability of getting a particular outcome. And that's just wealth, but the same with health. You're not going to see a 15-year-old who beats Arnold Schwarzenegger in his mid-20s because there's just not enough time for the compound effect to pay off, if that makes sense. And again, I don't want to associate with Arnold, but the point I'm making is over time, your courage and your decision-making is what's going to make or break your long-term success. I mean, you got lucky. You talked about being jacked, and you got one of the hottest girls ever because you were jacked. That luck runs out over time. I mean,
it's not something you can rely on for the rest of your life. That's for sure. Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there. I was thinking of this when you were talking. Rationality has helped me a ton with social media because I'm always looking through the lens of what's real here. What is actually real here? Not because there's so much stuff of this weird thing is happening and this weird thing is happening and this is happening and this is happening. It's like, what's the most likely thing? What's the most likely reality that's happening?
You have an example.
What is it? Not really, because they're all so. No, I don't really have a good example.
So when you see someone say, hey, I have the 3 steps to build a 6-figure online business in 3 months, that to me is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's this is my new frame. If you say, I can guarantee you X result in X amount of days, I immediately assume it's garbage.
Yeah, it's a lie. Because it is possible. Let's say you have 1,000 people sign up, and let's say 3 of them, just like the Taylor Swift thing, 400 songs and 40 of them end up hits or whatever, 10%. Let's say you sign up 10,000 people, or 1,000 people, make the math easy, 1,000 people. And 10% of people, let's say 100 of them actually end up making a 6-figure business. Now they say, hey, we had 100 people go through this program and they all made 6 figures. What you're not seeing is all of them happen to be brilliant, unbelievably hardworking. They already had followings. I have a client who just signed up for a large package. Shout out to you. You know who you are. And he came to me and he said, do you think this is bullshit? And I studied it, and he actually showed me the whole recording with the sales guy. And I said, dude, this looks legit. Now, trust me when I say this, you're not going to be, I mean, they broke it down. The top earners make this much. The low, I said, just so you know, do not expect to be that. That dude was already famous, right? So, but I said, no, this looks legit. And you know what it is too, Kev, is, Kevin, it's when you get older and you get wiser, you just are less hoodwinkable. I think my whole life I've just become less and less and less hoodwinkable.
Well, it's awareness. There's certain places I'm still way more hoodwinkable. If I went to the dealership and said, hey, my car's making a weird noise, I'm going to question it now more than I ever have.
Yeah.
But that's not my awareness. I don't have a super deep awareness of that. Fitness, I'm not interested in buying your product. I know it doesn't matter. I know. I got invited to speak at a podcast conference, a virtual podcast conference. I don't know if I'm going to do it because on the person's profile, it says, I guarantee we can get you guests, A-level guests or high-level, high-ticket sponsorships in 2 weeks. I don't know if I want to be associated with that because that's not real.
Yeah.
Here, I said this to a client the other day. Chris, shout out to Chris. Great human. Awesome human.
My man, Chris.
He said, what are the... Yes, yeah, he's big into NLU. We're grateful. He said, what are the odds that I actually can succeed with this podcast? And I said, the new direction you're going, the odds are way higher. And then I said, this example I'm going to give you is results not typical. We had a client who started a podcast, and she has been on the top charts 99% of the time since she launched her podcast. She got clients in her first week, and she is crushing it. And it is a massive piece of her business. I said, and she also is genuinely world-class at what she does. She is an expert at what she does, and she has awards that say she is one of, if not the best in the world at what she does. That's why. We launched Tori Aleto's podcast for her. We worked with Tori Aleto when she was doing her podcast.
Top 15 first week?
Immediately. Wasn't because of me. I didn't do anything. You know what I did? I got Tori to do the podcast. That's what I did.
If you were full of it, you could do an ad that says, I just launched a show that was top 15.
I've launched many.
The credit. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this has been top 100. Podcast Growth U has been top 100. Tori Aleto's been top 100. Evan Carmichael. So many. But those are results not typical.
Yeah.
That's how I know it's not. That's how I know most of it's BS. Because I had a moment yesterday. I went on somebody's website for something, and there are all these testimonials. And I had this thought of, I got testimonials from people 5 years ago when I sucked at this. So even that is a wonky thing. And that's me calling myself out. Do I still think I was better than average? Yes. But I wasn't nearly as good 5 years ago as I am today. And I had a bunch of people on video saying Kevin is awesome at what he does.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Could I just get Alan to make me a testimonial? Of course I could. Could I just reach out to someone?
Kevin is going to get you more results in less days
than
anyone ever of all time.
I signed up with Kevin.
At guess who?
The next thing I know, I'm a trillionaire. I don't even know where the money came from. I don't even know how to count that.
What was the
zeros.
One with the one where they said 230 countries or something?
Yeah, top 100 podcasts in 265 countries. It's like, well, there's only 100.
It's like there's only 195.
Only 100.
So
now it's countries and territories, evidently, but that's not how they measure it. But that's the ultimate thought is.
I have the best podcast on Mars. I don't know if you knew
Mars.
That. Yeah.
No, same.
Did you know?
That's what I'm competing for. Mars and Saturn. I'm going to Saturn.
Remember when you and we had a colleague in the past who started a Facebook group with 0 people in it, 15 people in it, the number one mastermind in the world, the number one place for or something like that. And I said I was so mad, dude. At this point, I just laugh because what people that's. When Alan and I interviewed Evan Carmichael in person years ago, I said, what is marketing? I said, marketing is just essentially making something look better than it is, right? Because again, shout out to McDonald's, I've seen Big Macs on TV. I've never received one in reality that looks anything. It looks like it was run over by something several times. Anything. Tractor, truck, motorcycle, elephant, I don't know. Still delicious.
Great. Always great. But I have never acquired a meal that looks the same as it does on TV because those aren't real meals. Some of those aren't even real edible food.
They're not.
They have food artists who make it look that way. It's not real. Even that. So again, I don't know how we got on that, but it's rationality. It's the understanding that most likely, you're not going to be the anomaly. Most likely, you're not going to go viral. Most likely, you're not going to win the lottery. Most likely, that's not going to happen. On the other end, most likely, you're not going to get struck by lightning. Most likely, you're not going to be in a plane crash. Most likely, the statistics, not saying it won't happen, because I know some people who have gone viral, and I don't know anybody who's been personally in a plane crash, but I know some people who've gone viral for sure, 100%. It's going to happen to somebody. It's just most likely not going to be you.
I remember, I know we got to jump, but I want this one story to hopefully land. And remember, if you aren't, the 4 modalities I never finished. It's numbers and mathematics, number 1, energy, intuition, and just energy and intuition. And then vibe. And the third one, words and concepts. That's the most common. Most people are words and concepts, and they think in conversations. And that's my second one. Actually, my third. The fourth is vision, images, and pictures. A lot of people think in vision, images, and pictures, and words and concepts. Words and concepts is by far. And the constructed theory of emotion talks about how your emotions are constructed by words. So if I said the dog went to the mall, everyone has an emotion about it. And why are dogs going to the mall, right? But ultimately, that's why we can cry during animated films and stuff like that, is because of pictures and words and concepts. Okay, so energy and numbers are the rare ones, super rare. So the reason why vibe matters is because you can find the snakes. There's low vibe individuals and there's high vibe individuals. So one of the woman that interviewed me yesterday, I could tell she was high vibe. She was a virtuous human. I can tell in the energy. And I know that sounds really arrogant. I never used to be able to tell. I grew up in a very low vibe environment, so I didn't understand the difference. Emilia helped me sort of hone the difference between a high vibe woman and a low vibe woman, and the high vibe men and low vibe men. Low vibe men tend to be more dangerous and manipulative. And the women listening, a lot of our listeners are women, you'll understand. I mean, you've probably learned that the hard way. Many of us have, unfortunately. So anyways, vibe is my weakest one, and numbers is my strongest. So for everyone out there, figure out which is your strong one. Kev, it's words and concepts. That's why you rap. You're really good with words, and that's why you title all our episodes. I'm numbers, so my titles don't work, because it's all about what the concept is, and it needs to be a compelling title, right? And so we all have a strength and a weakness, and what do you think in? Visionaries think in pictures and images and vision. Engineers think in numbers and rationality and exponentials. Energy, most women, I think in more women than men, statistically, I would say, think in energy and vibe and intuition. I think men ignore their intuition probably more, which is really dumb, in my opinion. And I, myself included, by the way, didn't use energy. And so whichever one's your weak one is holding you back, and whichever one's your strong one is your superpower. Usually we mitigate the strong one and hide it, and then we suck at the blind spot one. So the last thing I'll say in this episode, I remember one time Emilia was leaving to go on a trip on a plane. And before Emilia leaves the house at any time, I always have her come see me, even if I'm working. And she was making a bigger deal about going on a trip with the plane than she was going to, I don't know, the grocery store. And I said, sweetheart, I just want to, we are really big on helping each other grow. And I said, sweetheart, I know you're going on a plane, and I know that your family makes a big deal. Like, before they go on a trip, they make sure they hug each other, I love you, right, just in case something goes wrong on the plane. I said, sweetheart, I don't have whatever that is. You're fine. Planes don't crash. We're good. Cars, on the other hand, I'm very concerned. So I told her this recently. We sold her Prius, and we have a really nice Model Y Tesla. And my favorite part about the Tesla, is it's super safe. It's a very heavy, large car. It's a Model Y. It's a very, very, very safe car. So I don't like when she was taking the Prius. I didn't like when she was in the Prius as much. I didn't feel as safe, because 40,000 people per year in the U.S., I think it's 38,000 now. Cars are getting safer. Roads are getting safer. 38,000 people per year die in car crashes. And the plane rate is next to nothing. So I'm not concerned when she goes on a plane. So from now on, whenever your partner leaves or someone you love leaves and they're going on a plane and you make, give them an extra hug, just realize how irrational that is and think about the numbers. And I know that that's a weird example, but it's really important to understand that planes are infinitely more safe, 100,000 times more safe than every time you get in your car.
Doesn't help me at all.
Doesn't?
I try to think about it. No, it doesn't matter. No. I'm up in the air,
That's so
son.
irrational.
Yeah, but so aren't snapping turtles. Son.
But I use that playfully. I'm not actually.
Well, I'll find
I mean,
something
yeah,
that's-
they're scary, but
I'm not scared at all.
I know
of them.
I'm not going to die of a snapping turtle.
I'll choke that thing out with his
They
little...
might take your little candy corn pinky toe, though.
That's fine. So I shout out to somebody else. Shout out to Richard. Richard has candy corn pinky toes too, he said, because of karate or jiu-jitsu. So I'm not the only one. All right, we got to go because you have a coaching call. Next Level Nation, as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. If you want a Dreamliner, they're on Amazon. Next Level Nation, a free private group where you can be yourself and grow with other humans who are growing at a similar rate. I can't do the outro without doing the whole outro. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep it rational.